Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, where we go live every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. unless otherwise notified for special events and interviewing guests in different time zones. My name is Laura Joseph, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We are an international educational center teaching people all over the world through our live streams how to empower, and what we do is empower people and the animals that they work with. You think I've been doing this every Sunday morning for over 5 years. We had our 5-year anniversary back in March, and that's just when the pandemic hit. So we chose not to celebrate it because everybody had other things going on. But you'd think that like every Sunday morning before I go live, I get nervous. And I'm like, why do I get nervous? I live stream for my business. My business is live streaming animal behavior training and enrichment through using positive reinforcement and applied behavior analysis. And I guess I get nervous because I want to give you guys my all. And hopefully I show you that I do. I love working with people who want to do better or do their best with the animals in their care. And we do that through our live streaming services, and hopefully I'm giving you my all. We do that with an array of different species using applied animal behavior. And we do that in our level one group, working with companion animals. Level 2, working with professional animal trainers or keepers in the field, but definitely not limited to. And we do that with an array of species, where I do a lot of live streaming from zoos and with exotic animals to show that it's not necessarily about the species, it's about the individual. So there you go. Good morning, everybody. We've got Lisa, Carl, Jennifer, Georgia, Sandra, Amanda. Hey, Amanda, I'll see you as soon as this live stream's over. Adrian, Ray, Kim, Jeannie, Christy, Jill, Eva, Tim, Bobby, Jen, Mary. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Critters. Okay, so let's get started. I usually start with what has happened through the week, but before I do that, I was going to say my schedule is kind of clear right now as far as traveling, but there's some things. Travel is in the background, and we're just waiting to get through this or work through this. And you can find our travel schedule and upcoming events on our Facebook page right here in the events section. Those of you that have been following know that if you want to join our email newsletter list, you had one recently go out. You can join our email newsletter list right here on our Facebook page. And like I said, if you want to know more about our services, you can find that out on our website, theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. Level 1, we do a lot of our services are live streaming, and we have people that are members all over the world. Level 1 for companion animals. Level 2, geared towards people thinking about going in the field of applied animal behavior or wanting more to do, and for professionals in the field. We also have species specific, which is the Parrot Project, the Pig Project, and we're doing some amazing work in the Parrot Project right now. So I'll make this very short, what I'm getting ready to talk about. But if you want to get a hold of me, you can find me and email me directly at Lara, Lara, at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. I answer all my emails and answer questions there. So good morning, Nancy, Daniela, and Shelley. This is what I want to make really quick. And those of you that follow our work on our Facebook page know that we recently lost Cello, our roller pigeon last week. A lot of us are taking this very hard here, and the center is missing an appendage. That's what it seriously feels like. So, to recap what has happened in the past week, so much. There's so much going on. But we're going through something here that was planned before the pandemic. Let's see, hair down, stay, good. There's a lot happening here. And hopefully we're showing you that. A lot of you that are members know a lot of what's happening. A lot of you know that I'm working with this pair of young hyacinth macaws that I will be seeing in about an hour. Amanda Stroud is on here. She's helping me with the training at Indian Creek Zoo, working with several different animals, and these are two. So we have two young hyacinth macaws that have come into the zoo, where I'm the director of the animal behavior training and enrichment. These are clean slates. They're 8 months old. They have an 8-month history of reinforcement of knowing how their behavior functions for them. So those of you that are in the Parrot Project have seen all the intense work that is going into this, but it's so much fun. They're going to behave in ways that function for them. So what I'm doing is intervening, and Amanda is helping me, intervening very early on and reinforcing behaviors we want to see maintain or increase. They've been with us at the zoo for a little over 2 weeks, just a little over 2 weeks. The first time we took them out, they were outside. They were very afraid of the outdoors. We found out that they had never been outdoors before, and the sun and the fresh air and the wind and the sounds and the people, the socialization, all of that is so important to them. We found out that their aviary was destroyed in a hurricane, so we took them back in and the training began. And I'm here to tell you that for the past several days now, we've reintroduced them back out to the outdoors after different training has happened. We trained all kinds of behaviors inside that could be used to be for them to be transferred outside. So here is myself, and no, not myself. I'm the one taking the picture, with Amanda Stroud in the background, where we reintroduced them outside. So we took them back inside. We did recall training, identified and built our list of reinforcers. Amanda says they have done great the last 2 days when going outside. Great. And I haven't seen them since Thursday, and I'm getting ready to see them as soon as this live stream is over. So we built their list of reinforcers. We reintroduced them closer. We trained them perch to perch and trained them to go closer to the windows. Then we trained them for people to come up closer to the windows for those encounters. We had them stationed on that stand next to the window so they could get used to seeing what they were getting ready to be involved in. We introduced them to the public, keeping their distance, making sure that we understand animal behavior through training. This is why a lot of times I'll start with target training or just feeding, and pairing myself with the positive reinforcers. These two macaws are very empowered in their environments, and we want to make sure it stays that way. We're getting ready to, and we're showing all this live streaming in the Parrot Project, every single step of the way. We've got harnesses getting ready to come in, but one thing I do with any animal, one of the first things I do is get them on a scale. So we can make sure their weights are staying healthy for their size and for their species and for their activity level. So we got them both scale trained within the past week, in addition to so many other things. Judith, good morning, Judith. Everybody's going to see Judith here pretty soon. So, something else we've been training, which I said I'd never train an owl again. Well, never say never. So I'm going to say now, because every time I say I'm never going to do this again, it happens. So I'm going to say now that I never want to train an octopus. So hopefully that happens. She's now 9-week-old Eurasian eagle owl that Amanda is helping me train as well. So we had an Eurasian eagle owl here in the center for training a couple of years ago. Does anybody remember Bellatrix? And a lot of times in our level 2 membership, we will show at least weekly live streaming every step of the way. So right now we are getting we're getting an average weight of what she eats per day. And we do not withhold food to train animals. What we do is identify reinforcers, gather them, take the amount that they would get in the day anyways, and pair them with our training. Those are positive reinforcers. And in addition to them being paired with the training session, they're paired with us. And then through my experience, and many trainers on here will agree with me, when you pair yourself with the animal's positive reinforcers, sometimes if you're lucky, it's food. But I always tell people, don't bank on using only food as your positive reinforcers, because pretty soon you're going to find yourself in a situation where food is not going to work. So I'd say about 45% of the time we're using food as a positive reinforcer. With myself and these macaws, the opportunity just to be with me is a positive reinforcer. And that is what we see quickly form when you're accurately identifying, using, and pairing yourself with the animal's positive reinforcer. And it's always the animal that determines the reinforcer, never us. Okay? It's just us that identifies those reinforcers, stick them in your pocket, and use the same amount throughout the day that they would be getting anyways. And then pretty soon you'll see, if you're doing this efficiently and accurately and fluently, you'll see those lists of positive reinforcers skyrocket, and just the opportunity to be with you. So when I go in and get those macaws out, I can't keep them off of me now, which is a great problem to have. So now what I'm trying to do is getting them to perch on my hand instead of my head. So we've used a lot of those positive reinforcers to get them out. So Jen said she would absolutely love to see the training of the Eurasian eagle owl in level 2. And these can, when you're training a raptor, especially a raptor that's not a social creature, it can really fine-tune your training techniques. Because a lot of times these animals don't necessarily want to be with you. Down, stay, down, stay. Good. Okay. Kim says, sometimes my donkey's reinforcement is scratching. Exactly, Kim. And we use this scratching and tactile interaction, touch, with our pig. And I tell people a lot of times, don't use food as the only reinforcer with your pigs, because soon you will find only using food as a reinforcer with the pig can get you backed in a corner, charged, head swiped, and hey Marie, welcome. Kathy asks, how old is the owl? The owl today is 9 weeks old. So very young. One of the hardest animals I've ever trained, and hardest meaning you have a history of reinforcement of other behaviors that you need to counter condition, is an injured raptor that has spent years in the wild and now it is coming in and you have to work with it. Desensitize, counter condition. So with that being said, one of the things on my agenda today is I am in charge of the enrichment at the zoo as well. So today we are starting our zoo enrichment team. So at noon, I am meeting a bunch of volunteers out at the zoo to get an enrichment team put into place. This alone is a full-time job. In addition to the behavior and training of all the animals at the zoo, in addition to the work here at the Animal Behavior Center. Something I didn't mention is that Dylan Pickles will be going back to the zoo this week. So you're going to, we'll still be training them. You're going to see a lot of our live streaming of Dylan Pickles. That will be coming up in level 2. How everything we've done here since October is going to transition back over to the zoo. So this is why crate training is extremely important, because we don't have to force them in their crate. They already know it. Melinda says, Parrot Project 2, please. Yes, we have so many birds and parrots that will be live streaming in the Parrot Project with all our work at the zoo. So, okay, let's go. Let's get started on the Q&A. I try to at least once every 4 to 6 weeks have a live stream Q&A here within on the live stream, Coffee with the Critters. And this is all species, all species. What we do is we focus here on using applied behavior analysis and positive reinforcement with animals. And we do this through our live streaming services using positive reinforcement and applied behavior analysis. So let's go. Who has some questions? And here's the thing. Using applied behavior analysis is not necessary. It's about the individual, no matter what species it is, and it's about the laws of behavior. So what I do is make the laws of behavior very simple to understand. And I personally like to show you how we do that with exotics. A lot of my friends are professional dog trainers doing fabulous work in that community. A couple of them are on here today. What I like to do is back up their work, showing how the laws of behavior and the importance in education and understanding applies across species. So I may show you something with a baboon. Using a foot target with your dog, how does this translate to a hand target with a baboon? We've recently been live streaming showing in level 2 how to train a baboon to allow us to do husbandry behaviors on their nails through first giving a hand target, okay? And then we shape that. I need to contact my hairstylist. Hey, Kim, good to see you. There's Kim out in Oregon. When are you going to adopt a bearded dragon and start doing live videos on training? We thought about bringing in a bearded dragon here to the center. We have bearded dragons at the zoo. One of my favorite reptiles to train are alligators. That's getting ready to start in level 2 as well. Okay, so the alligators are out. They're on exhibit. I've been training them while they're off exhibit. So what do I do with these animals that cannot be outside during the winter? What I do is I train them inside. And what I start doing is start training all the behaviors I need for once once comes the time that those animals get outside. So before, a lot of the work I do is with exotics. So a lot of the animals that I work with are in enclosures. Before I get an animal out of an enclosure, I think in my head, how am I going to get this animal back into the enclosure without the use of force? Because I can do all this beautiful work with the animal outside of the enclosure, target, get on a scale, come to me when cued, nose target, tail target, whatever, temperature taking. I can do all this beautiful work, but then if I have to use force to get that animal back inside of its enclosure, I am now using force on an intermittent schedule of reinforcement, which means I'm using force once in a while. And when I use force once in a while, that animal can label me as unpredictable. And every animal that I work with and every person that helps me work with an animal, we have to work together as a team, observe. What I will usually do is train a behavior. And once I get that behavior trained, I will sit there and work with somebody, showing them step by step how I got this behavior, making sure that we are approaching and interacting with the animal in the same way. While I work on the next behavior. So right now with the macaws, I'm working on a lot, but I'm getting ready to transfer some of this information, this training over to Amanda. So Amanda's getting the birds out. She's recall training them. She's teaching them go from perch to perch while I'm working on the next one, which is get on a scale, step off of a scale. So then I'll put Amanda on that. And I don't want to be the only trainer, because studies show if you are actually using positive reinforcement training, it is the animal's preferred form of enrichment. What that can cause, if I am the only trainer, is that animal to become overbonded to me. Then you can have problems where the animal starts showing behavior issues when you're not there, when you start to leave. I don't want that stress induced on the animal, so I get another trainer, and we're all training, whether we realize it or not. It's just, what are we training? So I get somebody else involved as soon as possible. And I do that to prevent that animal from becoming overbonded with me, preventing behaviors labeled as separation anxiety, separation distress. Okay. Jen says, you just broke down all the work you did outside the enclosure. Yeah. So based on what Jennifer's saying, one of the first things I'll do with an animal inside the closure is just observe, identify, build my list of reinforcers. I will try to get at least 5 food reinforcers, but then I'm gathering other reinforcers such as favorite toys, favorite types of enrichment. And that's what we did with the macaws. The macaws, one of their favorite toys right now are these big chain links. And you will see in that photo that those chain links, plastic chain links, were hung at the front of the cage, and they were in those birds' mouths as we were moving them outside and making sure they are paired with being outside. Target training them. Because a target, getting an animal to touch an object, such as their nose, their hand, their foot, target both feet to your hand, tells them where you want them to be. That will earn reinforcement. And some of their reinforcements are kissing, smooching. Lisa says, bring on the cold-blooded lovies. Yes. I love working with aquatic animals. I love working with alligators. I love working with animals that people don't think can be trained. I just want to go through, make sure I'm answering all questions. Diane says, how can you tell the difference between the female and the male hyacinth? One has a leg band on one leg, one has a leg band on the other. I don't know which one that is because that's not what I look for. What I look for is how I've identified is the shape of the eye. The female's is more oval when she's intense and looking at you. The feathers on her head tend to raise more, and they raise for different reasons. They're contextual. It could mean she's nervous. It could mean she's excited. It's just which one is it? And you need to identify what else is happening in the environment. She's usually the first one. No, she's not the first one to fly to me. She's the one that won't stay off of me. Nancy says the highs you are training are weaned off baby food. Correct. Yes. The one I have here did not wean until well over a year old. Yes, these guys are weaned. And I do use banana baby food in a syringe as a reinforcer. Brianna says, talking with a family with overbonding in military macaw. He is now chasing the rest of the family. And that is so common. That is so common. I don't necessarily like or want an animal to become overbonded to me. Having an animal that's overbonded to me places a lot of stress, no matter what the species, on the other caretakers, whether that's the other caretakers in the home, other caretakers in the zoo. And resource guarding starts becoming an issue where an animal won't just resource guard food. They will resource guard areas. They will resource guard people, toys. So I try to prevent any type of resource guarding, such as with Micaiah, the pig-tailed macaque that I'm working with. When I first started working with him, I wanted nothing to do with him. And what does that mean? I was afraid of him. What does afraid mean? Afraid means I don't understand his behaviors. I don't know what he's getting ready to do. So then I was asked to start training him. I did not want to because I did not understand his behaviors. So the training began. And once the training began, I started understanding what certain behaviors meant. Body language. Body language is behavior. I started understanding what different things he did, what it meant, and what it was contextually, meaning that can happen when he's interested, that can happen when he's not comfortable. And believe me, I don't want to interact. I don't want to push him to the point where he's not comfortable. Lisa says, let me look. Does your gender influence behaviors as a trainer? That is a great question, Lisa. And so many times people will say, this animal does not like females. This animal does not like males. Or this animal is a one-person animal. Please do not label your animal as such, because when you label, you limit the animal's opportunities to learn. So I was told with one of the primates at the zoo that this animal does not like females. So I began training it. And I found that that was not true. I want to see, now she's, okay, whoops. Lisa, does gender influence? It may in the beginning, but try not to get yourself stuck in that hole where that animal was just used to working with females or just used to working with males. That's when we have the animals training us, which I'm okay with. Training is a two-way street. It's all about me and you, primarily you, but it's about us together and your future with other people and making sure we can have you live your life to the fullest it can be. Is there a secret to training consistency between people of different hormone signatures with regard to gender of animals? Do you see a connection across species? I guess what I would say, that depends on the trainers, okay? And it kind of goes along the lines, Lisa, with me saying, I don't want an animal just used to working with me. because then it's going to get it too attached to me. Then other people in the zoo or the family are going to start having issues with that animal. I would say I don't work 7 days a week, but I do. Almost every waking hour I am working, but I love what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm not at the zoo, like yesterday and Friday. I need that animal to be giving behaviors to other people because other people need to work with that animal when I am not there. Have fun at the zoo, Amanda. I'll see you in about an hour. Okay, I am going to try to answer as many questions as possible, but I'm trying to find the ones that can go across species. Happened to me in my African gray, bonded with my husband, literally chased me away. But through training, Sid is now including me in the flock. Thank you, Laura, in the Parrot Project. Good. And we've talked about this, working with, let me give an example. We have an animal here that could have been easily labeled as only liked men. I adopted this animal. I'm the one working with it, not my husband. So what I did is use my husband's attention as a reinforcer for me to be able to get closer to this animal. And it was paired. When I walk in the room, animal stays on my husband. I bridge, have my husband deliver the reinforcer. That's teaching the animal contingency. If I stay right here, attention from the preferred person is delivered as I continue to get closer and closer. Then it was to the point where I could get close enough where I could touch the animal. Very short touch. I bridge, husband delivers reinforcer. So I'm touching, that's the behavior I need. I bridge, my husband then touches as a reinforcer. Okay? Now I'm able to do a lot with this animal. I am this animal's primary caretaker. I don't want to be the only caretaker. That's where Lindsay comes in. That's where Karen comes in. That's where Erica's coming in. That's where Kendall's coming in to help me out with this so the animal doesn't overbond with me. Yes, Eva says, oh, she's just requoting me. Please do not label your animal because when you do label, you limit your animal's opportunity to learn. Yeah, and it's not fair to that animal. When we label behaviors, when we place labels on behaviors of animals, we limit their opportunities. And a lot of times it prevents interaction because you label something as that animal is aggressive. And people will be like, whoa, so they just don't interact with the animal. Because, and I'm going to say, if you tell me an animal's aggressive, what am I going to say? I'm going to say, what does that look like? When does that happen? I will start breaking it down, getting specific, because what I'm trying to do is identify reinforcers for those behaviors labeled as aggressive, such as biting, lunging, chasing. I don't want to see any of that happen. So a lot of times I first begin off contact. Space. I give that animal space. I will work with it in a large environment, or I will work with it. A lot of the animals I work with are in enclosures. So their opportunity to increase distance from me are limited. They don't have as much control. I want to give them as much control over their environment as possible so I can get that animal out of its cage. I usually begin off contact. There is no physical touch. I'm reinforcing from distances, pairing myself with the reinforcers. And then I move to protective contact. So there are usually, there's a gate between me. There are enclosures between me in case I make a mistake. How many times I want to make a mistake? Once. Because if I start making it more than that, and I have, I do make mistakes. I make sure I learn through them. When I make a mistake more than once, depending on what I'm trying to train, I could very well be reinforcing the undesired behavior I'm trying to change. Okay, so I'll work with protection between me and the animal where there may be some touch, but I am protected while giving that animal choice in case I make that mistake. And then a lot of times that moves to where that protective contact barrier is then removed because I know this animal. I understand this animal, and this animal knows me and understands me through training. Okay, let me see. Drinking out of my Long Island cup for my great friends out there in Long Island, New York. Jen says, I am having a problem with distance reinforcement while I'm out of sight. Currently, I am trying to have someone else reinforce at the location of the something, but it's not always possible to have someone there to train, and now it has become an issue of moose doing a find. Okay, a find, gotcha. Refined till I am in sight when we are training alone and staying at source and barking if their trainer partner. I have to come up with a plan that works for when I'm training alone with a partner. Any idea? And we can take it offline for later if you want. Jennifer, let's bring this up in level 2. Bring this up in level 2. I do a lot of training where the animal can't even see me. Those of you that are on my live streams know how many times I train. The animal can't see me. We're in 2 totally different buildings. We can do this. I train a lot through windows. We've trained different animals here to station where they can't hear us, but they can see us. You guys have seen me do this before, where this is a bridge for an animal in a different building that we're telling it, that's the behavior I'm looking for. Your reinforcer is coming. Jen, let's talk about that in level 2 because we can go a lot more deep with that, and I'm happy to help you with that. Whether you use, I'm sure you've already thought about this, Jennifer, using remote controlled treat training devices. I'm not sure if that helps, but yeah, let's go into detail in that. I'm happy to help you. Okay. I'm gonna, it's for cadaver work, Jen says. Okay, let's talk about this. I was just listening to somebody talk about search and rescue this week. I listened to a lot of crime podcasts, and they were talking about search and rescue work with their dogs this week, with their German Shepherds. Nancy, my good friend down there in Key West, for nearly 3 months, I have been the only caregiver for all of our rescues. All of them have issues with changes due to COVID-19. I've made that mistake too. Yes, Nancy, and this is why no matter what the species, this is why I say it's important to keep your animal used to change. You guys have known here that when the pandemic first happened, we went on lockdown for 40 days until we better understood what was happening. And it was very hard for me, but I needed to keep, I'm taking care of 16 animals here by myself I need to keep them used to change. Face masks. One of the first things I thought of is when I let volunteers come back in, we're going to have to wear face masks. These animals aren't used to me seeing me in a face mask. So we started the training of face masks immediately. So that would transfer when the volunteers come back. And you saw me doing head targets with a face mask on. getting them used to it, doing nail trims with face masks on. Okay. Okay, let's see. I want to take a couple of questions. Carl says, just finished my enrollment with the Parrot Project. Yay, Carl, because I've been watching you struggle and listening, and I can give you a lot more detail in the Parrot Project. What is very hard for me to do is try to give you information. People want a quick tip. I'm here to tell you I can give you a quick tip by putting $1 in your jar. That's quick, okay? When you're taught, behavior isn't easy. If it was, we wouldn't have behavior issues. So it's hard for me, and it's very irresponsible. It's irresponsible for me as a trainer, and other trainers, please feel free to chime in. It's very irresponsible for me as a trainer to try to give you, boom, here's how you fix this, or fix you. Here's how you change this behavior. But I can't give you enough information in a quick tip, okay? And I feel it is very irresponsible of me to try to give you quick information without the guidance, knowing that not all the information is there, and it could put you in a dangerous situation. It could put your animal in a dangerous situation, and somebody's going to get hurt. That is very irresponsible as for me as a behavior consultant, behavior modifier, and trainer. So that's where level 2, 1, the projects all come into play, because I have you for a whole year to help you and to keep helping you. So my current problem is with, I don't even want to say what animal it is, because people's like, oh, that's about a tortoise, that's about a cockatoo, that's about an ape. It doesn't pertain to me. It's about the individual. My current problem is with this animal who was never socialized with other animals for over 28 years. That kind of gives it away. I adopted him in early December. He is constantly trying to attack some of the other animals. Any thoughts on how to top his violent attacks on my other birds? Yes, I do have a lot to help you with. And that's why if you enrolled in the Parrot Project, I will give you that detail, because that is what we do here. Talk about animals with history, long histories of reinforcement of undesired behaviors. Coco, 38. Sunshine, 38, 39. Coco was labeled as aggressive, do not touch. Do you see the work I'm doing with Coco now? Coco has been here with us for 3 years. And somebody has lost an amazing animal because they labeled the animal as aggressive, unhandleable, not being able to work with. And he is one of the animals here that will stay with me until the day one of us dies, as long as I can stay healthy. Samantha, yes, if you guys are not following Samantha and her work on LinkedIn, Facebook, I know I follow you on LinkedIn, Samantha. Samantha is a board certified behavior analyst with her master's in applied behavior analysis. And she shows you, cheers, my friend, how applied behavior analysis works across species. She focuses in the area, and Samantha, tell me if I'm wrong, of fitness, human fitness, and in the work field. Samantha says, preach on. Like so many other things, people often want a quick fix. Behavior can be so complex. And I always tell people, the more intelligent the animal, I don't want to say the harder it is to train. When somebody tells me this is hard, that's my reinforcer to get involved, because I love increased complexities, especially in training. That's why I love training more than one animal at once, because it's like you start in a group of animals. Pick one. What do you want animal? Many times people will try to train the whole group at once. Pick one. Well, you are. Pick one, reinforce that behavior. And then as soon as you see another one, bam, reinforce that. Reinforce this one, reinforce that one. Listen to the animals in the other room. Then you get 2 animals to station, then 3, then 4, then 5. Jen, who is an awesome trainer, if you are not following Jennifer with Kawa Farms out of Iowa on Facebook, and Jen, I believe you said you're on Instagram. Jennifer is the one I interviewed here on Coffee with the Critters. What was it, Jen? About a month ago, doing search and rescue with her dogs. She does much more than search and rescue. Follow Jennifer. Jennifer, I like talking to you and interacting with you, because sometimes you say things I'm like, yes, I didn't think of that. Yes, that's a different approach. Fast, training slow. Changing a behavior takes reinforcement after reinforcement with management, so the animal does not have the chance to continue the old behavior. Can you hear that? Can you guys hear that? That's Rocky in a completely different building, and he's having fun. Do you know how I know without even seeing it? Because I know what that vocalization is paired with. There's my good friend, Anita Jacobson. If you are not following Anita on Facebook, Anita works a lot with pigs, and she's a rock star. Diane Garrett, if you are not following Diane Garrett, she is another fabulous trainer working with numerous species with a focus on dogs, but definitely not limited to. Diane knows who Sunshine is, and she's been out best friends as well. Diane says, progressive result-oriented behavior modification is longer lasting. Quick tip fixes are just not effective applied behavior application. Correct. Yes, and something I want to expand on what Diane is saying. Intermittent schedules of reinforcement. We just had a podcast in our memberships on intermittent schedules of reinforcement, which needs a lot more attention, because whether you an intermittent schedule reinforcement, there are different schedules of reinforcement of intermittent schedule reinforcement, are when you reinforce a behavior once in a while. That's a very blatant, blanketed definition to more complex. It needs more attention. But very generalized, you can't, if I reinforce a behavior once in a while, and I do use several different schedules of intermittent schedules of reinforcement, but you can unknowingly reinforce an undesired behavior once in a while. And that is the primary reason why animals lose their home, because people reinforce. Number one, they may not even understand that they're reinforcing the undesired behavior. This is the number one reason animals lose their homes. I do use intermittent schedules of reinforcement. Once I get a behavior that I want, I start changing a behavior. And what I do is first identify why that undesired behavior is happening in the first place. Because we may not enjoy it, we may not like it, but it serves a purpose for the animal. There is no behavior that happens for no reason. It is happening for some reason. It is our job to identify why is happening. When I can answer why is that behavior happening, that means I've identified the animal's reinforcer for giving that behavior. So I identify that reinforcer and start delivering it for an alternate behavior using differential reinforcement, I start delivering that reinforcer for an alternate behavior. And then I will put it on a continuous schedule of reinforcement, meaning every single time the behavior happens, especially in a training session, and that can be a little more complex than what it sounds. Every single time the behavior happens for the behavior that I'm trying to change, that I'm changing, the alternate behavior happens, I am reinforcing it every single time. Continuous schedule. Okay, you're not going to get a lot done with continuous. You're not going to get a lot of anything else done if the only thing you do is stick to a continuous schedule of reinforcement. You then need to start putting it on an intermittent schedule every other time, every fifth time, every 1 minute, every 5 minutes, every other day. A lot of behaviors that we have changed here are on intermittent schedule reinforcement. If I'm lucky, I get to train a young animal. A lot of times, this is why I chomp at the bit when people are like, oh, I just got this young animal. I'm like, start training it immediately. And they don't. You know why? Because they don't have any behavior issues yet. But they're coming. They are coming. So that's when I start seeing people start to say, oh, give you an example. My dog's chewing on my shoes. Silly dog. I'm like, oh man, here we go. Here we go. Do not become my client. You are on your way to becoming my client. And there is a lot of this in the pig community. There's a lot of this in all kinds of communities. So then what starts happening is that animal does not understand it's not allowed to chew on your new shoes, just your old shoes. The animal is looking at it as shoes. Then it starts becoming $150 shoes, $300 shoes. I don't want to spend $350 on a chew toy. Then it starts becoming anything on the ground, okay? This is why when potty training, anything, I don't care what it is, I am not a fan of using potty pads. Teach the animal contingency in going outside. We did this with our pig. When you go outside and pee, that's when reinforcement comes. Because the problem with the potty pads is the animal will use the potty pad. Then how does it know the difference between a chew toy and a $350 shoe? How does it know the difference between a potty pad and a piece of carpet? And then it starts becoming blankets laying on the ground, clothes on the ground, okay? Then you become my client. Don't become my client. Okay, so there's a great conversation happening. Samantha is saying, when working with people, it's unethical to start treatment without assessment. You have to understand why. Kudos. You have to understand why. And a lot of times, people will just place that individual on medication. Studies show, they're out there. Studies show that when treating a behavior issue with a medication alone oftentimes enhances that behavior issue, makes it stronger. You know why? Because you're not changing the behavior. The behavior hasn't been addressed yet. If I work with several different veterinarians and I choose my veterinarians very wisely, I work, and veterinarians work closely with me as well. I have to. This is why I'm teaching baboon open mouth on cue. I'm teaching Hyacinth macaw's foot targets because nail trimming is getting ready to start. Yes. Diane, don't assume. No. Hello, Joan from Denmark. Just got a pink cockatoo. Would that be a rose-breasted, a moluccan? I'm trying to think of all my pink birds. Okay, Lisa's talking to Samantha. Judith, who you're going to see here very soon, me interview on Coffee with the Critters, says, so much easier and faster to train a young animal and shape behaviors than have to train an older animal that has developed behavior issues due to lack of training. Yes, and when I hear somebody use this label, the terrible twos, I'm like, it makes me twitch. Because with the terrible twos, no matter what the species, what the terrible twos are, is a period of the animal learning or the individual learning. And it's called the terrible twos because we learn through interacting with our environment and manipulating that environment to see what works for us. And it may be an undesirable behavior to you, but it works for me. And what that animal is doing is learning all these behaviors that work for it, such as dig under the fence, chew your $350 shoe, scream for attention, okay? Head swipe and lunge when strangers come into the room. It works for them. And when you run away, the animal learns that's what works. It doesn't mean don't run away. It means redirect the behavior before the undesired behavior can happen in the first place. And once you have that terrible twos, however long that lasts, which usually starts at 5 months, as soon as the animal can be able to crawl, fly, swim, what have you, is now you have a couple years of counter conditioning to do, which means retrain an alternate behavior. The problem with that is you can change the behavior. You can change the behavior if you identify the reinforcers, then put it on an intermittent schedule of reinforcement. The problem is getting people to pay attention. And if you do not put that alternate behavior on a schedule of reinforcement that works for you and that animal, if or when the reinforcer is not delivered for the alternate behavior, the animal is going to resort back to the undesired behavior that once earned it reinforcement, because that animal has learned the reinforcer is no longer being delivered for the alternate behavior. So I'm going to go back to what used to work. And there's your history of reinforcement. And I'll tell you, you want to fine tune your skills, train a parrot that's 38 years old with a 38-year history of undesired behaviors being reinforced. This has been a fabulous Coffee with the Critters. Thank you, everybody. And I want to tell you, if you like what you have seen in this Coffee with the Critters, this is what we delve into in level 1 for companion animals, level 2 for the professionals, but not limited to professionals, people who want more intense training. You can go into our species specific. We do a lot of work with parrots, a lot of work with pigs. We also have our referral program, which is for every 5 people you refer to our online memberships or programs, our projects, earns you a 1-hour free online consultation. Last before leaving, our nonprofit, the Sam I Can Foundation, which you can find at samicanfoundation.org. You can also find this. You can also find this on Facebook. The reason I'm telling you this is something's getting ready to happen. If you're not following the Sam I Can Foundation, it's full of live streaming of people and animals that need help, that started from the loss of an animal that we had here. So pay attention to the Sam I Can Foundation's Facebook page. Unfortunately, it's getting ready to get active again. Okay? All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm headed out to the zoo to see Amanda and start working with a lot of these animals and put our zoo enrichment team together. Pay attention. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. For our next Coffee with the Critters, we have several special guests that I am scheduling over the next couple months to join us for interviews. Everybody, have a great Sunday. Take care. Be well.